Download the Steve Austin Unleashed show, and this is one where everything flies, including the kitchen sink, as you well know by now. And we're going to try and make your Christmas a little bit merrier today. We're taking your calls, and we got a special guest, the white meat babyface from Norman, Oklahoma, Jumpin' Jim Ross. So we're going to get started after a few words about one of the sponsors who makes it possible to do this show for you free each and every single week, and that is Onnit. Onnit makes Alpha Brain along with the greatest supplements on planet Earth. And you know why I take Alpha Brain. I take it so that I'm razor sharp and mentally focused, and so that I can open up 2 cans of audio whoop-ass for you. And guess what? There's no caffeine in Alpha Brain. There's not gluten either for those of you who try to stay gluten-free. I'm also a big fan of Onnit Shroom Tech Sport. I take it before every workout, and it helps me go longer and recover faster. It's a great all-natural way to fight fatigue. And right now, if you go to Onnit.com/Steve, you can get 10% off your order. And check this out. Onnit has a money-back guarantee. If something don't work the way it's supposed to, Onnit will give you your money back, no questions asked. So go ahead. Try Alpha Brain. Try Shroom Tech Sport. Or give Honest T Plus a try. You ain't got nothing to lose. T Plus is designed to increase strength and power. It improves athletic performance and helps with muscle recovery, and it's been clinically proven to work. You can read all about that at Onnit.com. T Plus has also been certified drug-free by the Banned Substances Control Group. That means it's safe for you to use even if you're competing. So go to Onnit.com/Steve to get your 10% discount off all your supplements. What are you waiting for, folks? Go now. That's Onnit.com. ONNIT.com/Steve to get 10% off your order.
The following program is a podcast1.com production.
He started in a small town in Texas. Worked his ass off to become one of the most famous wrestlers of all time.
We're going to take care of business tonight, and that's the bottom line.
And now he's dominating the world of on-demand audio. And he's doing it for the working man.
This is a damn good outlet for me to spew the bullshit off my brain.
Yeah! This is the Steve Austin Show. Unleashed. Unleashed.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Steve Austin Show. Today I'm in Beverly Hills, California, taking your phone calls, answering questions. I sent out that tweet on Steve Austin BSR. Appreciate all the help. We're about to get to that. But first, before then, we're going to talk to my good buddy, Jumpin' Jim Ross, at JR's Barbecue on Twitter, the white meat babyface from Norman, Oklahoma. Jim, it's damn near Christmas. Merry Christmas, young man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, buddy. Doing good. Happy holidays to everybody.
Man, I tell you what, Jim, I was over there in South Texas at the Broken Skull Ranch. I had a few family difficulties, had to come back to Los Angeles, California. And coming back from a population of about 2 at the Broken Skull Ranch to 13 million in Los Angeles has been a little bit of a culture shock for me. So I'm trying to improvise, overcome, and adapt and get used to being around so many damn human beings. It's quite a culture shock for me.
I can hear you, man. I understand. Well, at least you got to spend some good time down there at the ranch, and knowing you, you're going to adapt just fine.
I'm going to make it just fine. Hey, man, I wanted to call you, and because we've been talking over the past few weeks, and you're, in my opinion, the greatest wrestling announcer of all time. And
wow.
You're about to you're about to put on the headsets again, and you're going to make a trip down to Japan to call a pay-per-view. I wanted to talk to you about this and how these people reached out to you and which organization this is for. Is this New Japan Pro Wrestling?
Yeah, it's a New Japan pay-per-view, Steve. It's on January the 4th from the Tokyo Dome. It's their annual major show there. So for wrestling fans, they should look at it like it's Japanese. It's the Japan version of WrestleMania. So Jeff Jarrett reached out to me because his company that he's getting off the ground had the rights for the pay-per-view in English in North America and then on the Flips app around the world. So they approached me, and I turned them over to my management team, and they worked out a deal. I hadn't talked to Jeff Jarrett since 1999 when we had a little difference of philosophy, and he left kind of abruptly from WWE. So it had been about 15 years since we even spoke. So I wasn't overwhelmed with getting back into wrestling, but while they were negotiating, I started watching the New Japan product on YouTube. And golly, man, I was impressed because I was not one of those underground New Japan guys that watched everything that they did, just to be honest with you. So, but they're old school in principle, but they got all today's whistles and bells and their entrances and all the surroundings. So I thought, well, hell, I kind of like this. So if the deal can be made, let's give it a shot. So that's kind of where we are.
Now, is there going to be anybody in your ears producing you? Because, man, I always felt that your strongest work was in the Attitude Era. Obviously, all that stuff in the mid-'80s, early '90s with WCW, NWA, and, of course, I loved your stuff with Mid-South Power Pro. Is that going to be the Jim Ross that we'll be hearing calling this pay-per-view?
That's the goal, man. That's the idea. We talked about that. I said, I want to be creative. I want to be spontaneous. I want to have fun. I want to be excited in a fun way, good, positive way, but I don't need to be overproduced. I'm going to be very well prepared. It's like preparing for a whole new world for me. So, no, the headset should be kind of quiet. I'm assuming they're going to count us in and count us out in Japanese, so at least I got to understand what 1, 2, 3 or 4, 3, 2, 1 or whatever the hell
right.
I need to do for that. But no, it's going to be kind of unfiltered. Jared hired Matt Stryker to be the color guy, and we have made a decision that we're going to approach this very seriously, still have some fun, but call wrestling and not try to get ourselves over or be talking about things that are completely unrelated to what you're seeing.
I mean, it's been a while since you've been able to do that, and you've been off the air for quite some time, but towards the end, I mean, you were so produced. Man, it just it was hard for me to listen to because I know how pure your love for the business, your knowledge for the business, and to watch the storylines unfold and just to let you do your thing and call the match at hand. And it'll be interesting because I'm going to get the pay-per-view myself just so I can actually hear someone talk about the wrestling holds and the psychology going on within the match that the guys are going to be trying to tell in the ring.
Yeah, these guys have good bookers. They have good instincts. These talents that they've gotten are this is the biggest thing they're going to do all year. It helps move them around on the roster. They see their careers elevate or deflate depending on how they perform at the show. So there's a lot of pressure on these athletes. There's some Americans on the show that I liked. I think are underrated as hell. And but the New Japan group has been red hot financially. They're probably the hottest group in that regard in the country. They're not the biggest, but they're the biggest in Japan. And so I'm kind of excited about this. I've done a couple of shows in that Tokyo Dome, and I know you've been there over the years, and it's kind of cool because it's their premier building in the country. It's the home of the Tokyo Giants.
But what kind of attendance are they expecting here, Jim?
Well, I've heard a couple of numbers. They said on the low end about 30,000 people, and on the high end in the 50,000 range. And it's the same arena that Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson to win the world boxing title years ago. So it's a special place. But I think, hey, you get 30, 40, 50,000 people in there. I don't care how long you've been away from the game.
Right.
It's going to get me fired up. I ain't looking forward to the trip, the flight, but that's part goes to the territory. But I damn sure guarantee you, once I sit down there at ringside, I'm going to be ready to go. The only thing that my biggest concern, it's a 4-hour show, no pee break. So I told somebody I'm just going to wear darks. That's the best I can tell you.
Don't drink any water before the show. Don't drink any water or coffee as soon as you get up that morning. Hey, I wanted to talk to you about the style that these guys are going to be wrestling in because, back in the day, it was considered strong style and just a very snug. Take Sheamus and kind of, it was almost Sheamus style for those people who aren't familiar with strong style. What is the style that's currently in vogue in Japan right now? Are they working more holds, working more body parts? Or, like these days, the work in the United States, at least from what I'm seeing on Monday Night Raw, is very segmented working where, heel take over for a little bit, babyface takes over. Heel takes over, babyface. It just goes back and forth. Well, what is the style of wrestling over there right now? Because I haven't seen anything from Japan in many, many years.
Well, it reminds me a certain bell to bell now. I'm not talking about the surrounding, but bell to bell, it reminds me of a little bit of the UWF, Watts' UWF. They lay their stuff in. They lock up like men. They use basic psychology. Somebody doesn't take a post to the shoulder, and then somebody goes to work on their ankle. You get continuity here, and there's a story you can tell that makes a lot of sense. But I like the fact that they use basic psychology because that's what they've been taught, and they're not allowed. Even the top guy, Tanahashi's their top guy. He's their John Cena. He's their Stone Cold. He's their Ric Flair, whatever. He's their top guy, and he'll be in the main event. But even he sells. He connects the dots. The thing I like about it is that they still covet the art of selling, and that selling is done in degrees, and they still do that. So it allows you to tell a hell of a story, and all the styles are a lot different. Now they're going to have some car crashes with some high flyers. They're going to crash and burn. No doubt
absolutely.
In my mind.
Yeah.
They'll have some of that. They're going to have some guys. They're going to be ground attack guys. They're going to try to beat the hell out of each other before they take care of their business. And then as the card goes on, you get the higher level star power comes into play. And the main event is kind of two guys that have had it's kind of like you and Rock when he had 3 main events at WrestleMania. These two guys have had a similar path of big shows. The one guy is 37 years old, and he's the top dog, Tanahashi. Okada is about 27 years old. He wants to be the top dog and has been somewhat anointed that role. When they're going to make that changeover, I don't know, but it could be on January the 4th. But bottom line, that's the big main event everybody's talking about. I would expect those guys to have a 5-star match that will go past 30 minutes without question.
Man, that's a lot of time, and that's a hell of a task in hand to pull off that kind of a match. And those guys over there are very fundamentally sound.
Yeah, they're taught well, and they stay in those dojos and suffer and pay their dues. Getting beat up in a dojo, going on the road, doing little menial tasks, this, that, and the other, as a quote unquote young boys, still go through that procedure. It's, people in America that didn't understand it would say it's hazing. It isn't hazing, it's a rite of passage.
Right.
And the guys that make it have great respect for the business, and the benefactors of all that are the fans that watch the product because it's a damn good product. And people are going to say, well, how do I know these guys? Well, it's up to me and Matt Stryker to tell you who the hell they are and why this match is happening and what this guy's strengths are and what this guy's strengths are. And if they have a history together, what that is. You know, the damn entrances are forever.
Right.
So during those entrances, my goal is to give you all the biographical sound bites without overloading you, so you kind of get a feel for who these dudes are before they get in the ring. And by the time the bell rings, I'm done with that. We're going to call the match because the kickoff's here. They kick the ball off. It's time for the game, and that's going to be talking about stuff that we're not seeing. And I've talked to Stryker about that, and we're on the same page of that deal. Old school wrestling call, but we can't make it boring, and we also can't do radio. We can't talk for 4 hours. And God Almighty, it sounds like the Jerry Lewis telethon, for God's sakes. Let me up.
Right. Hey, before we shift gears, I just want to ask you, you brought up the name John Cena. I just want to have a few American wrestling WWE questions for you before I let you go. But one last time, Jim, plug this pay-per-view and tell the people how they can purchase this thing and watch it.
Well, it's an old-school pay-per-view format in that you can get it on virtually every major cable platform in North America. It's available on all the satellite TV providers. So there are the two primary ways in North America to get it. If you live outside North America, or if you live in North America and you don't have access to any cable or satellite, you can download it on the Flips app, FLIPP TV app. They've got an app that you can watch it just like any other digital programming. So there's 3 ways. So if you live in the UK, for example, and I know you've got a massive audience in the UK, they can watch this show live on the Flips app, FLIPPS TV app. So Simple stuff. It's old school pay-per-view, just like you used to buy them. Or satellite, DirecTV, whatever.
But I'm on DirecTV, so like I'm going to be able to find this thing on DirecTV and purchase it.
Yes, sir. You absolutely are.
Well, all right, I'm going to watch the damn pay-per-view, and when I do, we'll get back together. And I know we were talking about doing your show. Maybe we'll reconvene on my show, but I'd like to break down the pay-per-view with you and talk about the pros and cons and the strengths and weaknesses of it compared to what's going on in America right now. With that being said, moving on, I just had a question, Jim, that I'm going to come up later in the body of my show. A person asked me, will John Cena ever turn heel? Give me the long story short answer to that, in your opinion.
Very few guys have gone through their entire career without switching parties, changing what side of the fence that they graze on. So the record, unless you're Ricky Steamboat, if you ask me right now, who's the only guy you can think of that was never a heel?
Right.
That was a star, babyface. I'd say the only name I can think of is Ricky Steamboat. I mean, Hellfire Andre was even a heel.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking the odds are somewhere when the roster is intact in their view and some more guys get some more experience, I think that it's quite likely that John Cena will have a heel run. I don't know how long it will be, and I'm not even advocating it, but if I just looked at the averages within the business, you'd almost have to say, yes, at some point that will occur.
That'd be interesting. Did you get a chance to watch Monday Night Raw last night?
Yeah, I watched it off and on. I had phone calls and other distractions, but I did watch it. I do have it on the DVR, so I will catch up little pieces I missed. But I watched the majority of it, absolutely.
Did you see the Big Show Roman Reigns match?
I did.
Roman Reigns' weakness right now, selling. He's having a hard time sell. Agree, disagree?
No, I agree. But I think, Steve, and not digressing, we both do podcasts here for Podcast One, and I do a little monologue on mine, and I talk about what I like and what I don't like, and I try not to be too negative, really, but selling across the board in the business essentially sucks. And that's not a WWE. They don't have the franchise on talents that don't understand the varying levels of selling. But I would say that I thought that match, it made me uncomfortable on certain levels to watch it because I know how high in high regard WWE has for both guys, quite frankly. But Roman Reigns is going to be a bigger part of the future than is the Big Show, just simply because of age.
Correct.
But I wasn't overwhelmed with that match. Certainly not knocking their effort, but it didn't seem like they had chemistry, or at least they kind of had an off night. Hell, we've all had them. I've had tons of them.
I've had a bunch of them.
Yeah, so it's no big deal, but it's selling. Everybody's selling. It's got to be logical and timely, and I'm not seeing that much in the wrestling business. People forget what happened to them 30 seconds ago, and that's just a disconnect. And they keep disconnecting the audience because they're not bringing forward what happened to them earlier in the match. So I'm with you on that deal. Reigns has got a great look. He's got a bloodline. He's got good character. I think he's a good guy. Professional. I like the kid personally, but here's the thing. He's been in the business about 3 years. If he had 3 years in 3 different territories, and then he had another 2 or 3 years in the upper level territories, then he'd be ready for WWE, just like the old days. But because there are no territories, he got trained in a less than not positive, but a challenging environment. It's hard to learn how to be a pro wrestler in a warehouse or in a gym without working 5 or 6 days a week for a few years in front of a territory crowd.
Right.
And we're seeing that more and more every week. I see something that happens. I say, well, if that kid had 5 or 6 years in the territories, he'd be ready for this spot. But a lot of guys are having to learn on the fly. And I'm not, and certainly the guys down in Orlando for WWE doing a good job teaching the fundamentals and things like that. But there are a lot more to being a successful main event guy. And if you're not looking for main event guys, then what the hell are you looking for? So it's a touchy thing, but the lack of territories continues to plague today's pro wrestling business.
And again, when I bring up Roman Reigns, I think so highly of him. I just think that's one of the holes in his game. It was just obviously apparent last night in working with the show, and the chemistry wasn't the greatest in the world. And, I don't think the match was set up that great to begin with anyway, but nonetheless, I just want to keep seeing him improve and continue to add things into his offensive arsenal to put forth more of a body of a match as well. But that selling is just paramount as a babyface, which is obviously what he is right now, and obviously the company with high hopes for that young man. But anyway, Jim, I just want to get a couple of thoughts on, a little bit of American stuff to go along with the Japanese stuff. I'm going to let you ride off into the sunset right now. Is Jim Ross calling the New Japan Pro Wrestling pay-per-view on January 4th. And for you cats over here in the United States, DirecTV, all those normal pay-per-view ways that you would go to watch something like this are available. And also the application that Jim is calling, what's it called, Jim?
It's called it's an app called Flips, Flipps TV. That's their Twitter handle, Flips TV app. But Flips, Flipps, is an app that you can download, and then you can then access the pay-per-view if you're outside North America, or if you don't have cable or satellite access. That's your ball game right there.
Well, Jim, I'm looking forward to listening to you be back in your element, calling pro wrestling matches, and look forward to hearing the chemistry between you and Matt Stryker. What do you and Ainge have planned for Christmas over in Norman, Oklahoma?
You know what? I'm going over to Tulsa on Friday to see the grandkids and my daughters for a while. It's hard to get, when the kids get married and they have kids, and then they got in-laws and they got outlaws and all this stuff. Dang, it's hard to get everybody together in one spot at one time. So we're going to celebrate Christmas on Friday, and but other than that, Ainge and I are going to lay low, and we talked about even going to a movie on Christmas Day. So just the two of us. So we're not going to do anything too adventuresome. And hell, next week this time I'm going to be getting ready to finish packing my bag and headed to Detroit to then fly to Tokyo. And when a guy like you and me got sleep apnea,
yep,
I worry like hell for that 13, 14, 15-hour flight, because I got to have that sleep machine to sleep. So I may just be up. I don't know. I got to figure that out, man. It's funny when the older you get, you start thinking about, well, there ain't no bathroom break at that pay-per-view. I can't get my CPAP machine. God dang, I feel like I'm 100 now. So I don't know. I hope that I don't let anybody down on this pay-per-view. I'm going to be full of piss and vinegar, but brother's got to sleep.
Don't sleep on an airplane unless you take your sleep apnea machine on there and pick a bad day to quit amphetamines.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
Jim, I know you're a big spender. One last thing, that you didn't go down to the jewelry store. You didn't go down to the jewelry store and drop $25,000 on jewelry, gold, and diamonds for Ainge, did you?
No, sir. No, sir. She's got all the diamonds and gold and jewelry she's ever going to need. And,
diamonds are a girl's best friend, Jim. You didn't go drop $20K. Come on.
No, I'm not dropping $20K on no Christmas diamonds for the Ainge.
Hey, you ain't gonna get hot about it. Jesus Christ, this is the Christmas season.
But she may listen to this podcast and say, Steve was right, you tight ass. Why didn't you go to the jewelry store and spend 25 G's?
Hey, man, I got a hell of a birthday present for me. You sent me some of your damn mustard and some of your ketchup, some of your barbecue sauce. You didn't send me my favorite, the Chipotle ketchup. Can't you hook a brother up for Christmas with some Chipotle ketchup from JR's Barbecue? Shit, what I got to do?
I'll FedEx that today. Ainge asked me today if I needed anything else FedExed. And
your old partner down here in Los Angeles, but ship it to my P.O. box in Tilden, because I think I've got all my issues worked out right now. Everything's working out in Los Angeles. I think I've got everything addressed, so I should be back at the Broken Skull Ranch here in a couple of days. So if you do, ship it down to Texas. I'm hoping to be down there in the next few days.
All right. Well, when you get through with your hectic schedule, another award-winning podcast that'll probably have at least 3 or 4 million downloads. text me that address in Tilden. I could just send it Steve Austin, Tilden, Texas.
That's all you got to do. It'll get to me. They send stuff, Steve Austin, Rattlesnake Road, Tilden, Texas, and it gets to me.
All right. Well, if that's all I need, if you got anything more official, I'll get that. We'll get that sent out today.
I'll send you the. I'll text you the address, and thank you for. I want to thank you for appearing on the award-winningest podcast show that's never won an award for anything, but it sounds good. Hey, you can catch the Jim Ross podcast, the Ross Report. Jim, when's your show dropping now?
It drops on Tuesday nights at 9:00 Eastern.
Now, your show's been kicking ass. You've had a lot of success with the Sumbitch. Are you thinking about going to twice a week? Is that for any kind of plans in 2015? Or are you still weighing your options out? You're kind of in demand. You got a lot of irons in the fire heating up. I
am going to weigh the options on that second show. I'm not against doing it. We just got to get, to that place. And so I'm still trailing you. I'm still your trailer hitch. I'm just trailing along behind. And so you blaze the trail, then I'll hop on there and take advantage of it. It's like Lewis and Clark. You're Lewis and I'm Clark, way the hell back yonder. So I wouldn't mind doing two, but we just got to see.
Two's busy, man. Two's busy. I mean, with all the stuff that you got going on, half the time when I'm doing these reality shows or whatever, someone approached me the other day about doing another project. And I said, listen, you got to understand, I do 2 podcasts a week. There's 52 weeks in a year. That means it's 104. That's a third of a year I'm working right there just on the podcast. And I don't like to say just on the podcast because this thing is my pride and joy. Now, you tell some of these people with these movie projects and they think, podcast. I'm talking about a movie. Hey, man, I love my podcast because it's a chance, and this is really the only way, the best way, other than my social media account on Twitter, to stay in touch with my fan base and to use that creative part of my brain. So it is work, and so we'll see what the future holds for the Ross Report. I know Norm and everybody down here at Podcast One loves you to death because you're cranking out big numbers and badass content for the working man and the working woman. Well, Jim, I'm going to let you haul ass and do your thing. I know you're going to do your podcast today. Who are you interviewing today for a future episode?
I am interviewing today for a future episode the guy formerly named Big Dick.